Om Vang me manasi pratishthitam mano me vachi pratishthitam aviravirma edhi vedasyama anistha shrutam me ma prahasihi anena dhitena horatran samdadhami ritam vadishyami satyam vadishyami tanmamavatu tadvaktaramavatu avatu mam avatu vaktaram avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Kumaram mata yuvatik samubdham guha bibharti nadadati pitre anikamasya naminadjanasa purav pashyanti nihitam arato. I better open this where you see the translation. The young mother bears the boy pressed down in her secret being and gives him not to the father. But his force is not diminished. The peoples behold him established in front in the upward working of things. So this is the mother, the nature holds within the growing divinity, the psychic entity, this Agni growing within the nature, until she becomes great. Kametam tuvam yuvate kumaram peshi bibharshi mahishi jajana. Who is this boy whom thou bearest in thyself when thou art compressed into form, but thy vastness gives him birth? For many seasons the child grew in the womb. Purvirhi garbhah sharadova vardha. Apashyam jatam yadasutamata. I saw him born when the mother brought him forth. So mother grows great, the nature grows vast, more divine, develops more and more faculties, more and more powers. Divine powers to receive, to be receptive of the divine presence, and he is finally born. Hiranyadantah shuchivarnam arat, kshetrada pashyam ayudham imanam dadano asmai amritam viprikvat kimmam anindrach krinavan anuktah. I saw far off in the field of being one tasked with golden light and pure bright of hue, who was shaping the weapons of his war. I gave to him the immortality in me and all my separate parts, and what shall they do to me who have not the word, and the God mind is not in them? So when the divinity within is born to the front, it is ready to engage with all the forces of darkness which are obstructing the growth of the being. And I surrendered to him, to this God in me, all parts of my being one by one. I gave all my immortality to him. What can they do to me, these forces who do not follow the word, the divine word, or the divine mind? And then, kshetrada pashyam sanutaschcharantam sumadyutham napurusho bhamanam nata agribharan ajanishtahi shachpaliknir it yuvatayo bhavanti. I saw him secretly approaching from far plain of his. It looked like an ecstatic moment of luminous herds of many forms and brightness. None of those who confine could seize on them the herds of light, for he was already born. And those rays of light who got weary and old became young again. There are many imprints, there are many experiences, spiritual experiences which we got from our past. And all of those experiences are stored in the subconscious cave, hidden within the subconscious being in us. And once he is born in front, the hidden divinity within us, the Lord of our journey, then they are refreshed, they are finally freed and become young again. Though they lost their luminosity over time, they are again born forward and being born fresh and young again. Kete Maryakam Vyavanta Gobhi, here we stopped. Nayesham Gopa Aranashidasa Ya Injagaribhu Avatesrijantu Ajati Pashva Upanachchekitvan. Who are these beings who could separate my strength from the luminous herds of knowledge? Who are those who stole my illuminations, all my meditative illuminations, everything I received as an insight, as a hint, or the presence of the higher light? Who are those who separated it from the effectiveness in my being? Why they are not effective, those luminosities? Why they are gone somewhere, stolen? Who are those beings who steal them and hide them away? They were here, and then next moment they are not here anymore. I had such a beautiful insight, and then next moment I become again normal, as if nothing happened. Who are these who steal them? Against whom there is no protector, there is nobody who can protect us against them. For they steal secretly without even a fight. There is no even fight. There is no even hint of some kind of resistance. Suddenly everything disappears, that's it. Those who have robbed me of my luminous herds of knowledge should bring them back. For here he comes, the Lord, the one who sees, who should find and drive them back. So better you give them back, otherwise he will come after you and he will take it back by force. And this is what happened when, you remember, Sarama came to Panis, the same story. She tells them, when Indra comes, there will be no mercy, so better you give them back. The same story, the same dialogue. It's a crucial question for all Vedic psychology. That's when I was studying with Matthias and his group, we were discussing what could be that Vedic psychology. And I think this is the fundamental question. Who are they who constantly separate our strength from the light of knowledge? Why they strength and light of knowledge do not go together? And why they have such an easy access, as if naturally robbing us of our light, our heavenly wealth. Who are these robbers? So the Rishi is declaring to them that they will not be able anymore to steal the light of knowledge, because he is already born, and he can see them in the darkness and bring all the stolen herds of knowledge back. So once the inner being is born, it has reached to the front of our consciousness, he can see in the darkness this being hiding in the shadow and stealing our illuminations. Pasam rajanam vasatim jananam aratayo nidadhuh martiyeshu brahmani atrech avatam srejantu ninditaro nindiyaso bhavantu. The king of those who dwell in creatures. The king of those who dwell in creatures, he in whom all creatures dwell, this is Sri Aurobindo's translation, is hidden within mortals by hostile powers. Let the soul thoughts of the eater of things, Atrech, release him. Let the confiners be themselves confined. He is the king among the dwellers. Vasam, it's from the Vas. Vas is a dweller. Vasam Rajanam, Vasatim Jananam. And he is the dwelling of those who are born. It's quite interesting. Yeah? He is the dwelling of all those who are born in the body, Jananam, and he is the king of those who dwell. The king of the dwellers and the dwelling of the born here. It's something very similar to how Sri Aurobindo explained Isha Upanishad, that it is not only that all this is to be inhabited by the Lord. In the later commentaries, he says that it is not only that all this is to be inhabited by him, but also all this is to be inhabited in him. So he is in the same way everywhere outside as he is within. As Sri Krishna also says in the Gita, he is not inside the creation, but creation is in him, yeah, so to say. So there are two approaches to it. Yes, one is, which we all read from the text, by the Lord is to be inhabited, whatever exists in this universal motion. But he gives another view that he is to be everywhere, like you find yourself in all beings and all beings in oneself. So here we see this hint again in the Rigveda. So Vasam Rajanam, the king of all the dwelling beings. Yeah? He is the king of all those who dwell, and he is the dwelling for all who are born. So this is more kind of universal, yeah? And that is more the individual, as it were. So he is the king among the dwellers, and he is the dwelling for all those who are born. But these undivine forces, Aratayach, the dark forces, Adevich, were mentioned before and will be mentioned after the non-divine forces, which do not give to the gods, Aratayach, try to keep him hidden inside the mortals. They are confining him. They are not allowing him to come to the front. These hymns of Atri, rising from the heart, Brahmani Atrech, Avatams Rejanto, should liberate him. And those secret beings that confine should confine themselves only. Ninditarach, nind, to blame, to confine. So the confiners should be confined. Yeah? Nindyasach bhavantu. So, and not confine him, the divinity within us. And that is what is happening in psychology, that thick layer of all the vital and mental forces which are trying to keep us tied to the world, to the sacrificial post with 1,000 pillars or 1,000 cords, or with 3 cords, sometimes symbolically. We will come in the next verse to it again, and Shunahshepa will be mentioned. It's interesting that myth of Shunahshepa is coming here. So, for he is the Lord and cannot be always concealed in the mortals by these anti-divine forces, powers. These hymns rising from the heart of Atri. Atri is the rishi, the family of Angirasa and Atri rishis, will liberate him, and those who were confining him will now confine only themselves. Shunahshepam niditam sahasrat yupad amunchach ashamishta hishach evasmad Agni vimumugdhi pashan hotach chikitva ihatu nishadya. Shunahshepam, chit. So chit comes in between Shunah and Shepa. Shunahshepa too, Shunahshepa, the perceiver of delight, who was confined by thousands of them. But you released him, and he became free. Thus, O Agni, release us from these tight cords of the confiners. O priest, O knower, take your permanent seat here in us. So this is the Lord who is freeing us from these confiners, who are the cords holding us back to nature and making us slaves of nature. So you know the story of Shunahshepa. The Rishi gives here a hint to the symbolic understanding of his name, which otherwise is difficult to understand. Literally, dog tail. Shunah, of the dog, Shepa, tail. By the way, Ajigartha, who was the father of 3 sons, and the middle son was Shunahshepa. And all of them have this strange name, which means the tail of the dog, and Sri Aurobindo translates it as the head of delight. Shunahshepa, in the mystic and highly symbolic story, was bought for 1,000 of cows for the purpose of sacrifice. Not 1,000, 300 actually, in Aitareya Brahmana, but 1,000 most probably in Puranas. But Vishwamitra taught him mantras which pacified the Lord Varuna, and he was released. Now, if you remember the story, there was Harishchandra king who wanted to have a son. He had 100 wives or 1,000 wives, I forgot, and wanted to have a son and couldn't get it. And then he was suggested by Narad. Narad is a very tricky one. Suggested to him to pray to Varuna and ask Varuna. But Varuna put a condition: if your son is born, you will give him to me as a sacrifice, as an offering. He agreed. So the son was born. He called him Rohitashva. So he immediately asked, sacrifice to me your son. He said, no, first let his hair grow, and then let his teeth grow, then let his teeth fall and new teeth grow. So he always found an excuse after excuse. And when the son grew already, he refused to be sacrificed. He said, I don't want to be sacrificed. And he went to the forest. He ran away. So Varuna sent his disease, some belly disease, towards Harishchandra, who became very sick. And Rohit was very concerned. He was always trying to come back. And for 6 years he was walking in the forest, and every time he was stopped by Indra not to go back. It's interesting. Well, it's Aitareya Brahmana. Yeah, I have the whole story. I was just refreshing it today. We can look into it. This is all the story. Very easy language, by the way. We can read it without any dictionary. So, and after all this thing, he came and met this Ajigartha. Ajigartha was the very thin and very hungry Brahmin living in the forest, very poor, and he had 3 sons. So the middle son was Shunahshepa. So his favorite son was older son, his wife's favorite was the youngest. So the middle son, they decided to give to the sacrifice instead of Rohit for 100 cows. So he said, I will give you 100 cows if you sacrifice one of your sons instead of me. So they made the agreement. And so there were 4 priests invited. There was Jamadagni, who was, I think, Udgatri. There was somebody else. There was Vasishta and Vishwamitra. So 4 priests, the greatest priests, were invited for this sacrifice, to sacrifice Shunahshepa to Varuna. So nobody wanted to tie him to the yupa, to the sacrificial post. So Ajigartha, his father, said, I will tie him if you give me 100 cows more. So they gave him 100 cows more, he tied him up. Then nobody wanted to slaughter him. So his father said, Ajigartha, that I will slaughter him for another 100 cows. So he was such a 100-cow person. So he got 300 cows. Yeah? So he was coming to him to kill him, but something happened. And what happened is that Shunahshepa found his way to liberation. He called to Agni, and then Agni led him to Savitar. Savitar led him to Varuna. And then he again called to Agni, and he again starts his journey with Agni. Then he comes to Indra. Indra leads him to Ashwins. Ashwins lead him to Usha. And Usha, the Divine Mother, notice, liberates him. He becomes free. He is untied and he becomes free from this. And when they see that he was freed, it was a miracle in a way. So he was freed before he was killed, slaughtered by his father. And Vishwamitra immediately makes him the oldest son in his own lineage. That means he will inherit all his spiritual wealth and all his material wealth, because he is the eldest son. He makes him, who is not his son, the eldest son of his own lineage. And he had 100 sons, Vishwamitra, and so 50 oldest sons disagreed with him and said, we cannot agree that he will be the oldest son now. He is not even your son. And 50 younger sons, notice 50-50 separation, agreed to accept him as the oldest son, as their authority, the oldest brother. So these 50 youngest became the divine people, and 50 oldest became the Asuric people. They changed into Dasyus. They were converted into the anti-divine. This is something very interesting to see how Vishwamitra dealt with this issue. And so I see in it, I will tell you what I see in this Shunahshepa, and this is important for our hymn. Shunahshepa is the psychic being. The psychic being that inner flame in the heart, who was liberated by the dawn, the Divine Mother, and Vishwamitra recognized this birth of the inner being in front and made him the major inheriting person of his all spiritual wealth. He gave him everything as to his older son. This birth of the psychic being and liberation from the ties of nature, those confiners who are holding us with this. He was tied to Sahasrat Yupata Munchach. You liberated him from the thousands of yupas. These yupas, the sacrificial posts, thousands of them. Can you imagine how many ties are there to hold us back from our divine birth? So he liberated him from these 1,000 ties. And this tying to the yupas is the ancient way of sacrifice. They sacrifice through nature by the tapasya, by the effort of the asceticism, yeah, kind of killing nature within yourself, all the desires, all the forces, cleansing one's own consciousness by tapasya. Tapasya means effort. But that is the old way of sacrifice. The new was the Divine Mother liberating the soul from within. And so Shunahshepa was born. And this is the myth of immortality in a way. So liberate us, mumugdhi, eva asmat agne vimumugdhi pashan. Liberate or untie the ties or Agni from us. Yes, asmat. Hotashchikitva iha tu nishadya. And here you nishadya, having sat down to Ochikitva Hota, or conscious seeing flame, as Sri Aurobindo says, or priest of our sacrifice, Hota. Hreniyamana apahi mad ayeh pramedevanam vratava uvacha indro vidvan anuhitva chachaksha tenaham agne anushishta agam. Hreniyamana, angry. Apahimad ayeh, you left me. You went away from me. Pramedevanam vratapa uvacha, and the protector of the vrata of the gods told me about it, that you left me in anger. Agni left the being. It's something interesting here. Let us try to understand. Indro vidvan, Indra, knowledgeable one. Anuhitva chachaksha, he saw you, he discovered you. There is the whole myth when Agni went away, not even angry, he was scared, because when he met Vritra, he got scared and hid himself deep in the ocean. So he angrily, you left me, and Vratapa most probably Varuna, here of the gods, told me about it, that the fire, the inner flame, went deeper within. He's not going to come to the front. He retired even deeper beyond. And Indra, the divine mind, found him, saw him, traced him somewhere in the depth of that inner being. Tenaham Agni Anushishta Agam, and taught by him, by Indra or Agni, I came to you. Agam Aham Tena Anushishta Agam. Incredible. It's really something, for the Vedic psychologist, it is an incredible stuff to learn. To be taught by the intuitive mind or the mental or intuitive consciousness, I found you, I came to you because it taught me how to find you, hiding within, deeply within me. Because Indra is this intuition, or our higher intuition, a mental intuition, which found Agni hidden within our deep being, beyond, in the depth, who hid himself in the depth, in the ocean, in the waters of the inconscient or subconscious waters. He was hiding. So Indra discovered him and taught me how to find him. So taught by Indra, instructed by Indra, I came to you, O Agni, because Indra led me to you. So this, it's experiential, something which only those who did it could know about it. You know, how to find this inner being within, with the help of intuition. In anger you have departed from me. This is something interesting about the inner being, the inner flame within. If you can imagine that inner flame is deep within, beyond the abyss. There is an abyss between our surface being and that inner being. And within, in the depth, deep, deep within, there is a flame. And every time we do something wrong, we misuse this flame, or we use the grace in a wrong way, this flame is kind of withdrawing deeper within. Every time we do something right and support the birth of the divine on the surface, this layer in between inner and outer becomes thinner or becomes more transparent, and the flame can come closer to the surface. So this kind of movement, coming closer and going deeper, to the surface and going into the depth. This is something what is happening, and Mother speaks about this. If we misuse this power, it will be more veiled. In the veil, one more veil falls on it. So we have to do more our outer efforts if we do it wrongly, so to say. It doesn't mean that it disappears, it goes away. It is said here that it goes away, but truly speaking, it goes deeper into the inconscient being in us. Yeah? So to say, there is one more veil falls upon it, which hides him deeper. These confiners are hiding him even deeper. So to liberate him is important, and Indra is playing a crucial role here. It is taught by Indra, by this intuition, by this mental intuition which Sri Aurobindo brought to us, which Vedic rishis brought to us, this knowledge which comes from above, the descending power from above, the Divine Mother which descends, the Shakti which comes as a light from above. She makes this veil thinner or more transparent, and we can see the inner dweller better and better. And eventually we can allow it to come to the front, or build the bridge, that golden bridge which she, the mother, represents, the dawn. She is the golden bridge between the inner and outer, and through that golden bridge he can reach to the surface. But Indra is her force, intuition from above, which she brings into action. It is Indra who led Shunahshepa to dawn. It is Indra, that intuition, who found him and led him to this golden bridge that he can cross and come to the front. So these are the symbolic images of the Veda, and I'm using now the gods as the powers which explain this psychological event. It's our inner being, yes. He is hiding within. It's that psychic being within us. Our soul is him, the Lord to be, who is to be born, who is to be brought forward. And he can be brought forward with the help of the Divine Mother. And Indra is playing a crucial role because he represents the Mother as intuitive consciousness here. I'm sure for those who study Sri Aurobindo it makes totally sense, because it is this what he was doing actually. All of the Adityas are her powers actually. But only she can liberate. She is the golden bridge. Liberate means that the inner being will be born on the surface, which was never the case. It was very difficult to achieve. And one of these first achievements of this kind was by Shunahshepa. It's one of the oldest myths, where Shunahshepa finally could bring the inner flame to the front and liberate himself from the ties, from the confiners, and became the eldest son of Vishwamitra. Incredible, yeah? How everything ties together. And that's why Shunahshepa, this myth, is still one of the major myths of immortality, the birth of the inner being in the front, liberation from the ties of the confiners. Then this inner light which comes to us will be effective and transforming our outer nature. But he was taught secretly by Vishwamitra the mantras, how to invoke Agni, how to invoke Varuna, Savitar, Indra. So he knew the mantras and knew the procedure. So that's why he became his elder son, because actually he brought him to birth, yeah, as a spiritual being. He gave him the way secretly. We have, we have Rigveda there. Rigveda was the teacher. It's what he says, that with the hymns of the Rigveda, with his hymns rising from the heart, he found the flame. Yeah? And this is Atri Rishi. And that's why Rigveda was so precious and so important, because rishis speak about things nobody speaks about. Yeah? In a very direct language, in a way, though it is symbolic, but it is direct. There is no more wishy-washy. There is no more some kind of, conceptualization. We don't need conceptualization. We need something direct, effective, immediate. So everybody speaks in conceptual language about everything. So what? As Sri Aurobindo says, when everything is explained, nothing is known. So this is something of the kind. Yeah? You explained everything. So Big Bang. So what? Big Bang and what? Nothing. Nothing at all. So chemical. Okay, so you manage something. Okay, you manage. So what? Where are we in all this? So this is a more direct language, anyway. And then Vijyotisha Brihata Bhati Agnih Avir Vishvani Krenute Mahitva Pradevich Mayach Sahate Dureva Sheshite Shringe Rakshase Vinikshe. Agni is shining with the wide light of the truth, revealing all and making all great. He is fighting straight the anti-divine forces. Pra adevich mayach sahate dureva, evil in action dureva, sharpening his horns to pierce the Rakshasa. Now, once he is in front, there will be these confiners who are now have no grip over us. They will attack. They will try to come back to their power as they were before, and this Agni will meet them in battle and destroy them. Agni is shining with the light of the wide truth, making all great and revealing all that is small and confined. He is direct in his approach to those who confine and keep the wealth for themselves. These are the confiners. They steal our spiritual wealth and hide it within the darkness. His horns are sharp and becoming even sharper to pierce the confiner. Utasvanasach divishantu agnech tigmayudha rakshase hantavau madechit asya prarujanti bhama navarante paribadho adevich. May the roarings of Agni in heaven be as sharp weapons to kill the Rakshasa. In the ecstasy of his movement, the beams of his light break angrily through the forces that confine. Now the battle is going on. The obstructing anti-divine forces cannot withhold his movement. The sounds created by Agni, the voices, the vibrations of the luminous mass of his being and power, the word, the mantra, is his sharp weapon against the Rakshasa. Agni strikes with his bhamas, the flashes of light and anger. It is with these flashes that he breaks through all the obstructions which are trying to hold back his movement. These forces will still try to hold back in our moving forward, because once he is born in front, he will grow, he will try to accommodate, include the whole world. He will start growing, and he will not stay within his own individual framework. He will try to grow into the whole cosmic existence. That's what Sri Aurobindo says about the spiritual transformation. The psychic being who is born to the front will embrace by itself the whole world. It will increase itself and become like the whole world. And so this increase, this conquest, this is the conquest of the divine, which is born from the within individual, is now conquering the worlds. And the Rakshasas are there. All these confiners, they live in that world. They will resist, of course. And he will, with his sharp horns, he will pierce all of them. And the last verse of the hymn, Etam te stomam to vijata vipro ratham nadhira suapa ataksham yadid agne pratituvam deva hariyah suarvatih apa ena jayema. Very archaic, very beautiful language. Etam te stomam tu vijata viprach. This hymn, this affirmation hymn, this establishing word, stoma. Stoma, Sri Aurobindo translates as establishment of higher consciousness. Or ecstatic bliss, viprach, of our sacrifice borne by power, I have made for you as the vehicle for your movement. Rathamna, as if the chariot, dhirach, the steady in knowledge and skillful in work, suapach, ataksham, I carved as the carpenter makes the chariot, I made this chariot for you, O Agni. If it suits you, Yadid Agne Pratitvam, for you, Deva Haryach, if it suits you, O Agni, please accept it, O God, and with its help, may we conquer the luminous waters of heaven. Suarvatich, luminous apach, waters of heaven, of Svar world, of the ray of the sun. Ena, with its help, Jayema, may we conquer. So this is the imagery of the Rishi. This is the Rishi who speaks, and in other places also, that he created this hymn as the chariot by which we may rise to heaven. So the hymn is the chariot who will carry us together with our Agni to the highest consciousness we can achieve. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.